Forza Horizon is finally going to Japan for its 6th installment. Japan is easily, without a doubt, the most requested setting for a Horizon game, but you would be forgiven for thinking people just wanted to see Japan for its neon-lit streets and sprawling urban areas, for the gorgeous pink cherry blossom trees or the cute anime culture that people have become obsessed with in recent decades. Sure, Japan does have all those things, but there's another reason that Japan was always going to be the right choice for the Horizon Festival's next destination. Japan has a car culture unlike anywhere else on Earth, and Forza Horizon 6 is shaping up to be the first game big enough to do every corner of that culture justice. If you're interested in Japan as a setting, or are interested in JDM, or Japanese domestic market as a car culture, but never knew where to start your journey in learning about it, this video is for you. By the end of it, you'll know exactly what you're looking at and what stops to look out for when you boot up Forza Horizon 6 and take your journey through the most unique, mythical car culture destination on the planet. JDM culture is a very unique space in the world of car cultures. It's not like being a fan of Lamborghini or Ferrari or any of the other high-profile Italian sports car brands, and it's not built around hugely expensive or exclusive cars like a lot of other subcultures are. The cars that define the roots of JDM culture, the S13, the H6, the RX-7, they were all fairly inexpensive cars when they were new. A lot of them were very attainable cars for the average person, and a lot of Japanese people even have memories of some JDM classics being their family cars growing up. A kid working a part-time job with an interest in cars could afford to buy them, and they often did. This couldn't be said for something like a Porsche Spyder or a Ferrari California, cars which a lot of people won't ever see in their lifetime, let alone own them. What this created was a culture that encouraged learning about your car and building up a vast base of knowledge around it. Rather than being able to just buy your way into a fast, competitive ride, you had to learn, modify, and build your way into it. You didn't just need to understand how to drive your car quickly, you needed to understand how it worked and how to work on it. You needed to know where the limits of your chassis were, its strengths and weaknesses, and how to extract race car performance from something that wasn't a race car to begin with. That ethos, affordable, attainable, and endlessly tunable, is the foundation that makes up everything that JDM culture was built on. The things we're going to cover today, cars, touge racing, drifting, time attacks, and car meets, all of them were branches of a tree that grows from the same root. People who loved cars, who couldn't afford to go to high-end professional race events but found their own way in despite that. Knowing about the ethos of the culture is all well and good, but it's hard to imagine what that culture looks like without taking a look at the cars that make it up. So, let's do that. The cars that came out of Japan's bubble economy era weren't just technically impressive cars, they were machines that became cultural icons. And what better cultural icon is there to start with than the Toyota AE86, or just 86 for short. It was a 1.6-liter, 128 horsepower Toyota Corolla that weighed just barely a ton. On paper, it wasn't a very impressive car compared to some of the Italian or German performance machines from the time, but its engine, the 4AGE, was a high-revving twin-cam power unit that loved to be pushed hard. Its rear-wheel drive configured chassis was light and well-balanced, and on the right road, driven by the right person, it could easily embarrass much more powerful cars. The 86 is the clearest expression of the JDM ethos. It wasn't a super-fast track star from the factory, but it absolutely rewarded driver skill. Next, we have the Nissan Silvia S13, a car which I have personal attachment to as it was my first project car. The S13 chassis became a hugely popular drift platform as it was lightweight, rear-wheel drive, and powered by the SR20 DET, a turbocharged 2-liter engine that was both vastly tunable and forgiving enough that someone learning how to drift wouldn't blow it up on their first outing. With some light mods, it was easy to push 300 horsepower out of the SR20, which made the S13 the first serious performance car that a lot of people could afford to build. This car is the Nissan Skyline GTR, and it tells a different story. The R32, powered by the twin-turbo inline 6-cylinder RB26 DETT, was so dominant in motorsport that when it entered the Australian Touring Car Championship, the Australian motoring press nicknamed it Godzilla. Back in Japan, in the Japanese Touring Car Championship, it won every single race it entered. The R34 refined everything about its previous two generations and became the most popular and idolized version of the car. This car was never sold in the West and only became legal to import and register in the US in early 2024. The Mazda RX-7 is a unique entry in our look at important cars in JDM history, and that's largely due to its engine. Rather than a conventional piston engine, the RX-7 used a rotary engine. It was a twin-rotor design that was compact, lightweight, and produced power in a near-continuous flow rather than in discrete pulses. The FD Generation's 13B RAW power unit was the first mass-produced sequential twin-turbo engine exported from Japan. It revved up to 8,000 RPM, had a 50-50 weight distribution, and handled nearly flawlessly. It did have its problems though. They were oil-drinking monsters, extremely temperamental, and required specialist knowledge to work on. I mean, the only person I've ever known that knew how to work on rotary engines had a whole business set up around working on RX-7s. The Toyota Supra is an important entry in this list. Though it was featured heavily in the Fast and Furious movies, its reputation among enthusiasts predates the films, stemming largely from its 2JZ GTE engine. The 2JZ, or sometimes called the touge, was a 3-liter twin-turbo inline 6-cylinder power unit built on a cast-iron block with forged internals. Stock, it made upwards of 300 horsepower, which was already some serious numbers, but because Toyota over-engineered the bottom end so heavily, tuners discovered you could push 700, 800, or even 1,000 horsepower through a largely stock block. The 2JZ became the benchmark for what a tuner engine could be. Other cars like the Honda NSX, the Mitsubishi Lancer Evo, and the Toyota MR2 were extremely important to JDM culture through the years, but if we spent time talking about every important car that was ever manufactured in Japan, we'd be here all day, so why don't we talk about these cars on the road? If there's a spiritual home for JDM culture, it's the touge. On its own, the word just means mountain pass in Japanese, but to fans of the culture, it means something much more specific. Narrow, winding roads cut right into the sides of steep mountains, where the margin of error is tiny, and knowledge of the course and your nerve going into it reigns supreme. Touge racing is a form of racing that largely had no spectators, no prize money, and no professional series set up around it. It was just drivers and the roads they drove on in the middle of the night. The same way a musician learns a piece of music, note by note, line by line, a touge driver learns a mountain pass corner by corner, run after run, until they knew exactly where the breaking point for every corner was and exactly how much speed they can carry into the apex of those corners. The cars that thrived on the mountain weren't the ones with the most powerful engines, they were the lightest cars, the most balanced cars, and the most responsive cars. The 8.6 became a touge staple due to these factors, able to beat cars that were twice as powerful down the mountain with the right driver behind the wheel. One of the things that made touge racing so distinct as a discipline of racing was the intimacy. There was no race team, no pit crew, and no track infrastructure. It was a completely self-contained world built on individual skill and knowledge of one piece of road. That isolation is what gave it such a strong identity, and why touge racers were some of the most devoted racers of the time. With touge racing being such an important staple in the history of Japanese car culture, of course Forza Horizon 6 had to feature them, meaning you can experience the thrill of learning these roads, racing down them, attacking the corners, and pushing the limits of your chassis yourself. Touge racing didn't stay on the mountains forever though. The techniques drivers were developing high up in the pass, the controlled slides, and the ability to rotate the car at the limit, were skills that had an audience waiting for them, and one man in particular was about to take what happened on the mountain and show it to the world. Keiichi Tsuchiya is a touge racer that spent years pushing his cars to their absolute limits on mountain passes. Tsuchiya started incorporating controlled oversteer, deliberately braking traction on the rear wheels and holding the car in a sustained slide through a corner into his driving style. In 1987, he filmed a historic piece of media in JDM culture called Plusspeed, where he demonstrated the techniques he refined on public roads. The video got him suspended from professional racing, but it was passed around the hands of touge racers all over Japan, and it made him a superstar. What Tsuchiya had done was take something that previously only existed in the dead of night and bring it into the public eye. Drifting was no longer just a byproduct of going fast, it was a discipline on its own. It was a kind of driving that prioritized style, slip angle, and commitment just as much as outright speed. Where touge was about the cleanest line through a corner, drift was about the most dramatic one. Drifting grew fast from there, and eventually, in 2001, the Japanese D1 Grand Prix series gave drifting a professional home. Drifting expanded westward too, and in 2004, Formula Drift brought it to the United States. A discipline practiced by a select few on mountain passes in the middle of the night had become a global motorsport phenomenon, complete with sponsorships, prize money, and purpose-built machines making well over 1,000 horsepower. At the center of it all was the Nissan Silvia S13, that lightweight, balanced car with its turbocharged engine we talked about earlier. It was an affordable platform to start with and could be tuned for exactly the kind of sustained power delivery that drifting demanded. It became the default starter drift car for a generation of drivers, and its footprint can be seen all over the professional drift scene even to this day. If touge and drift were disciplines about intimacy and style, then time attack is about pure obsession. It's a stripped-back, clinical expression of JDM performance, just a driver, their car, and the clock. The goal is simple: get your car around a circuit as fast as possible. It isn't about racing rivals on track and having wheel-to-wheel battles. Time attack is about racing that next tenth of a second between you and a faster time. You could consider the home of time attack in Japan to be the Tsukuba circuit. Tsukuba is a short, technical track just outside Tokyo that became the benchmark for Japanese tuners. If your car could set a fast lap at Tsukuba, that really meant something. Teams spent months and years chasing a single second, obsessing over engine builds and rebuilds, designing suspension geometry and behavior, and finding every last fraction of a second they could pull out of a car. Time attack was the natural culmination of everything JDM had led up to, starting with a cheap, attainable car and learning everything about it to push it further and further, faster and faster until you were at the top. It's the purest expression of knowledge and engineering, and translated directly into lap times. Forza Horizon 6 features tracks for time attack as well, and you can visit the track for a track day of your own to see plenty of people chasing times, trying to push their own builds to the absolute limits to chase those tenths. But not everything in JDM culture is about going fast. Sometimes it's about style, and sometimes it's about just being there. During the day, Daikoku Parking Area is a highway rest stop on the outskirts of Yokohama, but at night, it becomes something else entirely. It becomes host to massive car meets where you can find an immaculate, pristine R34 next to a slammed, stanced K car next to a fully race-prepped time attack build. Every corner of JDM culture comes together at night under the highway overpasses. Nobody organizes it and there's no entry fee. It just became a place with an understanding that on Friday and Saturday nights, it was where you went. Daikoku became a pilgrimage site for JDM culture simply because people kept showing up with cars that embodied everything about what car culture meant to Japan. Daikoku quickly became the social glue of JDM culture. This one parking lot became proof that, at the heart of these distinctly Japanese racing disciplines, there was a community of people who love cars, who want to be around them, and want to surround themselves with others who feel the same way. Forza Horizon 6 features its own tribute to Daikoku, where players gather for their own car meets to show off their own builds and to look at the builds of others. Just like visiting Daikoku on a Friday or Saturday night, players are given their own place to surround themselves with like-minded people who love cars and the people that build them. While the thrill of touge racing, drifting, and time attacks can be fun, don't pass up on the fun of car meets once these parking lots start to fill up. Touge racing, drifting, and the meets at Daikoku existed largely in Japan for years before the rest of the world caught on, so how did it get out? The single most important piece of media in the history of JDM culture was a manga called Initial D. It was a series that began in 1995 and spawned its own anime, live adaptation, arcade games, and whatever else you can name. Initial D follows a high schooler named Takumi Fujiwara, a teenage tofu delivery driver who unknowingly becomes one of the best touge racers in Japan by delivering tofu for his father every night in an AE-86 on mountain passes. Fun fact, Takumi is based on Keiichi Tsuchiya, the mountain pass racer we talked about earlier who went on to be known as the Drift King, with Tsuchiya even being a technical advisor for the series. The series introduced Western audiences to touge racing, the importance of the 8.6, the culture around mountain pass racing in Japan, and did it all through a story that was genuinely compelling. There are even references across modern media to the series, in everything from Grand Theft Auto to Pokemon to Genshin Impact, and yes, even previous Forza titles. Ask any JDM fan what got them into JDM today, and you'll get a lot of responses telling you that it was a direct result of Initial D. Its influence on the West's knowledge of JDM culture is impossible to overstate. Initial D was massively important. It took a culture that was largely invisible to Western audiences and brought it to light, and spread the gospel of JDM worldwide. And now, with Forza Horizon 6, we have another celebration of this rich and storied culture that you can now experience for yourself. Japan wasn't just the most requested Forza Horizon setting because people wanted to drive on its roads. Sure, that was a big part, but even more important than driving on its roads was driving in its culture. Taking part in midnight touge races, throwing their cars sideways at grassroots drift tracks, going on their own obsessive pursuit of faster lap times, and parking lots full of people who are there to fall in love with another night full of cars. All of it and more is here in Forza Horizon 6. You don't need to have owned an S13 or spent a night at Daikoku to appreciate what Horizon is doing in Japan, but sometimes you need to know what you're looking at, and now you do. You know why the touge roads feel different than anything else in the game, and why they were intentionally included in the game. If you want to, you can even take your JDM interests outside of the game to go and watch Tsuchiya's Plus B, or to get lost in the story of Initial D, and immerse yourself deeper in some of the media important to JDM culture. No matter how you fall in love with JDM, you now have the fundamental knowledge for why Japan was always going to be the right destination for the newest Horizon game. This is JDM culture. You have the keys now, so it's your turn to get out there and drive the wheels off it. I hope you all enjoyed the video and are having a good time with Forza Horizon 6. I make these videos alone and it takes a lot out of me. Unfortunately, the channel at this exact moment is a little small and not monetized yet, so it would mean the world to me if you could subscribe to the channel and like and comment on this video, or even share the video with someone you think might be interested. Also, if you want to support me and enable me to continue making content like this into the future, as well as have your name appear at the end of each video, feel free to visit the link to my Patreon in the description. I play games, chat, and shoot these videos in my Discord fairly often as well, so if you'd like to come play something together, or just chat, feel free to drop in. The link's in the description for that as well. Although these videos take a ton of effort, I do genuinely enjoy making them and hearing what you think. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care.